Pavlos.
I'm Trina too.
And I'm Dylan Bucksbaum.
And this is Breaking the Chains of Slavery, Harriet Tubman. For I had reasoned this out of my mind. There were one of two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other. For no man should take me alive. I shall fight for my freedom as long as my strength lasted. And when the time came for me to go, the Lord would let them take me.
It's the summer of 1849, and John and Harriet Tubman are having a conversation in their cabin.
John, I've been hearing about some slaves escaping up north to gain their freedom. So why don't we go north together so I can be free with you?
Harriet, I've been a free man since I was born. I'm not going anywhere.
Maybe I'll just go by myself then.
Let's be serious. Assuming that you really want to flee north, when it's nighttime, how would you know which way to go? What would you eat? Where would you sleep?
Okay, I understand you don't want to go with me. But do you support my desire of gaining freedom?
If you run off, I'll tell your master.
Harriet had very strong reasons for wanting to escape slavery. Growing up, she suffered through many beatings and whippings. And when she was 12, she was struck in the head with a metal weight, which caused her blackouts every so often during her life.
On September 17, 1849, when Harriet's master died, she and her two brothers escaped their plantations. But immediately, her brothers started having second thoughts.
Harriet, I don't know if I can go through with this.
You're giving up on your freedom already?
Believe me, I hate being some patty shop. But at least it gives me a place to sleep and food to survive.
What good is a life without your freedom?
I'd rather be in chains than dead.
Traveling alone at night, Harriet followed the North Star to her destination. Along the way, she came across a white woman who was a Quaker. Many Quakers helped in various ways throughout the anti-slavery movement, such as providing food, shelter, and directions for fugitives on the run.
Thanks for letting me stay in your cabin. You're a gracious woman.
No problem, Harriet. Just know that we're your friends. My Quaker brothers and sisters know that slavery is wrong, and will do anything we can to help. Before you set off tomorrow morning, let me tell you all about the workings of the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad consisted of many individuals, both of American and African ancestry. Beginning in the early 1800s, the Underground Railroad's purpose was to assist fugitive slaves in their escape to the northern states, Canada, and occasionally to Mexico or the Caribbean to gain freedom.
The reason the Underground Railroad was given this particular name was because of its similarities to a natural railroad, such as lines, conductors, stations, and freight.
The lines in the Underground Railroad were the distances between one safe house to another, also known as stations, which are approximately 15 miles apart and were stopping places.
The conductors are those who aid the slaves on their journey, while the slaves themselves are commonly known as freight. These terms are used in order to keep the Underground Railroad as discreet as possible.
Harriet completed her first journey using the Underground Railroad to travel nearly 90 miles to Philadelphia. When she crossed the Mason-Dixon line into the free state of Pennsylvania, she had finally reached her destination.
When I found I crossed that line, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. There's such a glory over everything. The sun came like gold to the trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven.
While in Philadelphia, Harriet met William Still, the state station master for the Underground Railroad.
In 1850, William helped Harriet become an official conductor. She learned routes to free territory and took an oath, so the existence of the Underground Railroad would remain a secret.
In the years that followed, Harriet developed her leadership and legacy in the Underground Railroad by personally rescuing over 70 slaves, including family members, close friends, and many others over a span of about 9 separate missions. She became known as the most famous conductor of the Underground Railroad and was referred to as Moses, because like the biblical Moses, she too led her people to freedom.
In one of her missions, there was an African-American young man named Josiah Bailey. His muscular build, impressive height, and strong work ethic made him a very valuable slave.
Josiah had reached his breaking point, so he asked Harriet to help him flee north to seek freedom. They were cautious throughout their journey due to a $2,000 reward offered for Josiah's capture. The pair hid in ditches, dressed in various disguises, scattered, separated, and traveled by foot, boat, wagons, or locomotive.
They had finally gained freedom once they had stepped on Canadian soil.
Joe, you've reached Canada. You're a free man.
Thank the Lord! There's only one more journey for me now, and that's to heaven.
After that glorious event, Harriet sought Josiah many times. He became an industrious free man in Canada, and he would always be thankful for the life that Harriet led him to. But in 1850, it became more difficult for slaves to escape to gain freedom due to the enactment of the Fugitive Slave Act. It stated that slave owners were able to legally reclaim their slaves once they had escaped to the northern states.
Howdy, Charles. How's the work at your plantation?
Great, especially for the past 14 years. Not one of my slaves has gotten away due to the glorious Fugitive Slave Acts. Who do the slaves think they are? Citizens? They are property.
I know. The Fugitive Slave Acts are great. They stop us from losing money. My crops make up my income, and I know I am working the fields.
I know, you're right. I hate to say it, but the slaves are our income. And if we lost them, we would be in some serious trouble.
Howdy, Arthur.
Howdy all.
What's wrong?
Didn't you hear? The Fugitive Slave Acts were repealed just a few days ago on the 28th of June.
It's because those numbskulls in the north want to destroy our livelihood. What's their excuse now?
Well, apparently, some of them northern states can't seem to enforce these laws, so they got repealed.
This can't be right.
This is an outrage.
One year later, in 1865, slavery was formally abolished when Congress passed the 13th Amendment stating, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction.
Once Harriet's duties were completed at the Underground Railroad, she worked at a union in various positions, such as being a cook, nurse, and spy.
When the Civil War had ended, she continued her desire to help others by assisting to establish a home and hospital for the needy, aged, and sick. She would spend the rest of her life here until she passed away in 1913.
Harriet Tubman is an inspiration to us all. Her legacy has shown us bravery, courage, and perseverance. Various leaders have eloquently expressed Harriet Tubman's leadership traits, which illustrate the importance of her legacy. I've known Miss Harriet Tubman for many years. As a white abolitionist and politician, seldom if ever have met with a person more patriotic, more brave, and of more integrity and wisdom. The cause of freedom owes her much. The country owes her much.
Harriet Tubman is an American hero who fought tirelessly for the Union cause, for the rights of enslaved people, women, and for the rights of us all. She was a leader in the struggle for civil rights, who was forever motivated by her love of family, community, and by her deep and abiding faith. I have created the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad National Monument and a National Historic Park at Harriet's former home in Maryland.
Harriet Tubman's legacy is a legacy of resistance. As author and professor Jen L. Hobson puts it, that legacy mainly requires that we act, that we remember, that we struggle, and that we create community. 100 years later, we are still following Tubman's lead.
If you hear the dots, keep going. If you see torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. Keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going.
Harriet Tubman endured the chains of slavery.
But as a leader, fighting for freedom, equality, justice, and self-determination.
She broke the chains of slavery. Breaking the chains of slavery, Harriet Tubman.
How did you choose your
Well, first we each got a list of about 5 people, and we narrowed it down to Harriet Tubman because she was the most valuable for leadership and legacy, because she saved tons of slaves and she helped with the Union cause in the war.
Why were the stations 15 miles apart?
Well, the stations were spread out, so,
Why 15 miles apart?
right.
Find that in your research?
Because they needed to, like, they couldn't have them everywhere because they needed to be discreet about it. And also, like, that's how they traveled around. It was just their route.
Thank you.
You have a lot of resources that you cited. How did you integrate all of the information from these various resources?
Individually and as a group, we researched each source that we found, and every source that we used, we told Dylan, and he cited all of the sources that we found.
And what source did you find most helpful?
I found Scenes in the Life of Harriet Tubman by Sarah Hopkins Bradford the most special because it was the first biography ever written on Harriet Tubman, and it was the primary source because it was written at the time. And they were actually close friends, so Harriet Tubman told her stories that she never told anyone else, and she included it in the book.
And I found the slave narratives most interesting because they showed us the point of view of a person who was escaping, and we found actually one of the words. He said, "I hate being some Patty's dog." That's what slaves.
And I would like to add to that. I also found newspaper articles of that time period helpful because it gave us different perspectives of what the North and South felt with the Fugitive Slave Act and the slaves at that time.